Hi, I'm Pastor Barbara, and I wanted to give you a testimony and tell you of a healing that the Lord blessed me with. And I want to tell you today because today is December 30th, 2009. And a year ago, Thursday, December 30th, 2008, I was at home feeling really bad. I was snowed in. The snow around my house wasn't too bad, but I couldn't get out because there was a drift of snow in front of my neighbor's house. And I thought I just was feeling so bad. I should be feeling better. And maybe if the snow melted and I could go to the doctor, they could find out what was the matter with me and get me feeling better. And I went downstairs for something, and when I came back up, my heart was racing and my stomach hurt, and I thought, I'm not going to wait till the snow melts. I'm going to call the paramedics, and I'm going to see what they can do for me tonight. So the paramedics came and got me over to our mountain hospital about 2 miles from here. And they took some tests and a couple of CAT scans. And after the last CAT scan, they send those off. In my case, they sent it through the computer to Tennessee to a doctor, a diagnostician, and the notes came back. Now, this fellow, I had never met him before. Because I'd pastored in the area. I'd been in the emergency room a lot, and I knew about everybody, but I didn't know him. Certainly didn't have much bedside manner. He came up to me afterwards and he said, I don't have good news. As a matter of fact, I got bad news. As a matter of fact, you got cancer. And I didn't know what to say. I said, do you know what stage? And he said, no. And they made an appointment for a doctor in that hospital to see me the next morning. And there was hardly a dry eye in the people in the emergency room because so many of them knew who I was or knew me. And they were touched, and I was touched that they were touched. So after about a week, I had seen my primary doctor. It was, of course, New Year's. It was a year ago today. New Year's was coming up. The weekend was coming up. And I knew I wouldn't really get too much information for a while, and I was anxious to know the details. My doctor arranged for a surgeon, and I went to see him. He told me I had the kind of cancer that had been sitting around 8 years, maybe 10, and had just decided to go to town and do some damage, and it was probably not a big deal. Even the few minutes before I went under in the surgery, he thought it would be about 2 hours, and I had a couple of cousins that had come to be with me, and an old friend and a new friend had come to be with me, and we thought it would be about 2 hours. Well, 2 hours went by, 4 hours went by, 6 hours went by, and 8 hours, and it was midnight, and the doctor sent everybody home. I never went to the recovery room. I woke up when I was being taken from the gurney from the surgery into the ICU. They were asking me, on a scale of 1 to 10, and I said, forget it. They had given me as much morphine as they could, and it didn't begin to touch the pain. I didn't even know what they had done to me. So I called on the phone one of my friends. I had authorized the doctor to give specific information to my two friends. And one of them said, well, we don't know all that they did, but they did an awful lot. And then the doctor came in, and he was tired. He sat on the foot of the bed, and he said, tired. He said, you almost bled out last night. Actually, they took out an ovary, a fallopian tube, some small intestine. My tumor was necrotic, dead, and had parked against a piece of my stomach that they had to kind of cut around. They took out part of my bladder. They took out part of my colon. They took out 11 lymph nodes. They have no way of knowing what's going on with the lymph nodes in your body, but if they take out some, they can kind of figure that the ones in the body are going to be like the ones they took out, and they could study those. And it seemed that there could be a problem. And the doctor told me I got all the cancer. And I thought, good, they got all the cancer. Then a couple days later, my incision broke open. There's a name for that. You can't stitch it up again. It has to heal. And it was my entire stomach that opened up. We're talking inches that had to heal. After I got home, my friend Karen, who had been feeding my birds and feeding my dogs and taking me to my doctor's appointments, and I didn't know she was cleaning my house while I was gone to get it ready for me. And she got me home, and it was about 5:30, and I said, "Is your husband home yet?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, I guess you better go." And she said, "Oh, I didn't tell you I moved into your guest room." And she stayed with me for a little over a week, 24/7. And then she came every day for a couple of weeks after that, and continues to still come some. And I had a home nurse, and some green stuff started showing up when I was changing my dressing. And one day when she was there, she said, "I think that's MRSA." My surgeon gave me antibiotics, but my primary doctor tested for it. Sure enough, in the hospital, I got MRSA. Then I was introduced to an oncologist. Well, my primary had told me you probably need a little adjuvant chemo. People say, sometimes they get their cancer back. It isn't really that it comes back, it's that it hung out in the lymph nodes and it really never went anywhere. So you get this adjuvant therapy for maybe 6 months, and that takes care of that. And when I talked to the oncologist, he talked to me about a particular chemotherapy that they would give me for a year. And I'm a pretty good researcher. When I started working on my master's degree, I wanted to do my own thing. I didn't want to go with one of their programs. And so they made me take classes in research and in statistics so that I could do my own thing. And I started researching. And I found that this particular chemotherapy they were recommending I take for a year had actually killed more people than it had helped. People didn't die of the cancer. They died of the cancer treatment. So I told him, I'm not going to take it. And some doctors aren't used to people saying what they're going to do and what they're not going to do, especially women. But I'm not used to somebody telling me what they're going to do to me without consulting me. And so I said, I'm not going to take that, but I continued to take the other. But after a little bit, I started having all kinds of side effects. And at first they weren't too bad, and then they were. And I was seriously thinking, not only was I not going to take the other chemo, but I just might not finish this 6 months that they wanted to give me, that I had sort of committed to. Well, I hadn't committed to, but I hadn't said no. And then I woke up one morning. I was feeling pretty good, but my knee was about the size of a melon. My friend was on vacation, and I couldn't walk. I literally got out of the bed and scooted on the floor. I called a part-time neighbor. They live most of the time somewhere else, but they have a vacation home up here. And I knew they were coming that day, and I called her up and I said, could you come and get me and take me to the emergency room? They took me to the emergency room and found out that the knee, which was an infected, hot, gouty arthritis, but that I also had some blood clots and a Baker's cyst. If you will go to tape number 2, I'll finish this testimony.